My daughter Abigail is a theater major, and this past spring, as I was writing Joseph, she was in a production of Othello, and she'd already been on stage several times, and she was backstage waiting for her next entrance, and she had on costume, of course, and shoes that belonged to the costume department too, and I guess the floor was a little slippery, and she just took an unfortunate step, and when she stepped, her foot took a weird twist, and she broke her ankle. At the time, she didn't know it. When she called me from the emergency room, she thought she had just sprained her ankle. So I didn't bother to rush up to Tucson to be there with her. It wasn't until the next morning when I sat down, actually to begin writing on this Bible study again, that Abigail called and cried out to me that her ankle was broken and she would have to have surgery. So, you know, it's interesting when you do something like writing a study like this, God tends to take you through some experiences that just reinforce the things that he teaches you in Scripture. And he certainly did that. But I am thankful to say that I did not have to face all those experiences on my own. Unfortunately, though, Abigail was one of those who went through a time of healing as I was writing this study. And I was able to observe not firsthand, but second person, right? To watch her grapple with her injury and grapple with her wounding and struggle with the time that it was going to take to heal. And she so desired for things to go back to the way they were before. She was out of the show. The night that she hurt her ankle was just a preview performance. And so Abigail never was actually in the real performances. For 3 weeks of performances, she was out. She was heartbroken. And she struggled with the wounding and with the healing. But fortunately, and thanks to God, about 7 weeks later after her surgery, she was able to take the boot off and begin to walk on it again. And one of the things that she did, Eve, just so doggedly, I mean, she was so thorough about, was she did not want there to be a scar. She had 2 incisions, and she did not want those incisions to bear a bad scar. I mean, she's only 21 years old and hopefully has an acting career ahead of her. So it was important to her that her ankle, which I think is, you know, it's her ankles, not her face, but she wanted her ankle to heal well. So Abigail got online and found out, what do I need to do to help my ankle heal so that there's not a scar? And let me read to you a few of the things that she found out. According to one of the websites she looked at, here are some things to do to prevent or minimize a scar. Allow a professional to treat your wound if appropriate. So she did that, right? Keep the wounded area moist, but not wet. So she found a cream that she could apply. And then it says massage the area to keep it supple and improve blood circulation. And then 4th, protect the area from exposure to sun. So, you know, that first one is talking about letting a professional help you with the healing. And that's very similar to us with our broken hearts, right? There's only one professional who can really help us when our hearts break or when our hearts are wounded, and that is God himself, the great physician. But those next 3 tips are all about keeping that area soft. And that's why in this Bible study, I have presented to you the idea that we need to keep our hearts soft so that our great physician can touch our hearts, can impress upon our hearts, can move and work with our hearts so that they can heal. And it's important to do that. But you may have been wondering, what exactly does she mean by keeping a soft heart? And so today that's what we're going to talk about, how to keep a soft heart and what a soft heart is, what that looks like. We see in Genesis, we also see, though, that a heart that is soft is a heart that is not stupid. Okay, so a soft heart is a heart that is full, it's a heart that engages with other people, and it's a heart that is not stupid. Throughout Genesis 43, we see that Joseph is intent on seeing what's in his brother's heart. The scripture tells us that he wants to see if there is truth in them. I find that very interesting, that it doesn't say that he just wants to see if they're telling the truth. You know, when he asks who they are and if they are spies and do they have a dad and where's this brother, and The implication, I'm sure, in his behavior is that he's testing to see if they're telling the truth and that he doesn't believe them. But we know who Joseph is, and he knows who they are, and we know that he knows they're telling the truth. But he doesn't want to just know that their words are being truthful. He wants to know if they are full of truth. It's the very same word that we looked at a while ago for filled. Being a discerning and wise person means that you are able to discern what other people are full of. And where do you get that? Well, Joseph has already told both the cupbearer and the baker and Pharaoh that discernment and wisdom comes from God. So that tells me that Joseph had been asking God for wisdom and discernment. Later on, King Solomon, after he had taken the throne, his father had died, and he knew that his dad was a man after God's own heart, and he had ruled well over Israel. And King Solomon said to God, he says, how will I be able to rule over these people and treat them with understanding if I do not have wisdom and discernment? So when God has asked Solomon, you can have anything you like, what would you like from me? Solomon asked for wisdom and discernment. We are wise when we too ask God to fill us with wisdom and discernment. You see, a soft heart doesn't necessarily engage with those who are not trustworthy. It doesn't necessarily rekindle a relationship that would be dangerous or harmful or even hurtful. So it has to be discerning. I'm so thankful for that portion of Joseph's story that at first when I read through all the things that he says to his brothers and does, I think, boy, he's just kind of losing it. But then I realized that he's testing their hearts. He wants to see what they are full of. So a soft heart is one that is not stupid, but in fact, it's very discerning and it's very wise, and it gains that wisdom and that discernment from God. So I encourage you to ask God to fill your heart with discernment as you navigate re-entering into a relationship, especially. Finally, we see in Joseph's story in the past week of homework that a soft heart is a heart that lets God be God. Judah is the brother that leads the way in selling Joseph to the slave traders. It was his idea to sell him. And I don't know, but it could have even been that Joseph heard Judah's voice saying, hey, let's not kill him. He is our own flesh and blood. Instead, let's sell him to these slave traders that are passing by. Imagine how hurtful that would be and how those words and that voice would ring over and over in your head as the years go by. But now, when the brothers come to Egypt, especially on the second trip, and they bring Benjamin with them, and as the story plays out and Joseph's cup, his silver cup, is found in Benjamin's sack, and the brothers must return and potentially be held hostage because of this stolen cup. Judah is the one who steps up and says, hey, take me instead of Benjamin. I think it's so interesting that the scripture actually says that Judah and his brothers returned. As in verse 14 of chapter 44 of Genesis, it says, when Judah and his brothers came to Joseph's house. It's almost as though the narrator, God, wants to bring us back to the fact